Hello and welcome to Miss Severn's Studio. In the art studio, we focus on process over product. I believe learning happens when students make messes, get curious about the world around them, and have room to make mistakes. In the art studio, I use a Teaching for Artistic Behavior, or TAB, approach to art education. TAB is a choice-based approach that regards students as artists and offers them real choices for responding to their own ideas and interests through the making of art. Choice-based art education supports multiple modes of learning and assessment for the diverse needs of students. The goal of facilitating a studio-based program is for students to learn to think like artists. Educator and researcher Lois Hetland designed a framework for thinking called the Studio Habits of Mind. This framework helps guide students to think like artists. What I love about this framework for thinking is that it extends far beyond the art classroom. Students use these skills in real-world settings all the time. The studio habits give students a language to talk about their thinking and think about their process. There is no hierarchy in the studio habits, and often students are engaging in several studio habits at once. The framework is also ageless. I see evidence for this kind of thinking happening as young as preschool and in more developed ways in my middle school students. So, let's take a look at the studio habits. Developing craft. When developing craft, students learn to use paintbrushes properly, set up a workspace, and learn how to be productive in the art studio. Engage and persist. This looks like students working on projects for extended periods of time, and in my lower grades, we call it turning a whoops into a wow. I often encourage students to engage and persist rather than crumpling up their mistakes and throwing them away. Envision. Envision is one of my favorite tools in the art room. For my older students, I have created Envision sheets, which are a tool to guide their thinking about what they wish to create. Oftentimes, this is as simple as sketching in their sketchbooks. Express ideas. This comes naturally to artists. They have complex feelings and emotions and ideas that can easily be expressed through art. This is one of the major reasons I like to keep the focus on the process more than the product. It gives students room to express ideas without fear of being right or wrong. Observation skills are important far beyond the classroom. Students are constantly observing the world around them, and calling attention to this behavior and practicing it can help students hone their observation skills. Reflect. Students reflect on their art in a variety of ways. A class favorite among all grade levels is Art Talk. We'll talk more about that later. Stretch and explore. This essentially means play. In the art studio, I have intentionally set up an abundance of opportunities for students to explore play. Play, it contains all the developmental tendencies in a condensed form. Play in itself is a major source of development. Understanding the art worlds. In the art studio, we talk about where we can see art in the world around us and what the role of the artist is. While the studio habits look different across different grade levels, ultimately, TAB and the Studio Habits framework support the core principles of the art studio, which are play, autonomy, and community. Through play, children learn cognitive skills such as creativity, problem solving, divergent thinking, mathematics, and language. They learn to negotiate social relationships, regulate their emotions, and control their own behaviors. Play also fosters the development of fine and gross motor skills. When play is fun and child-directed, children are motivated to engage in opportunities to learn. Autonomy. As a teacher, I see my role as the facilitator. My goal is to provide experiences for students. Students need to make authentic choices to learn how to think. The goal of art making is really the process. It's not just to create beautiful objects. Community. A sense of belonging is essential to any learning environment. In the art studio, community is fostered in a variety of ways, including discussion, which we call Art Talk, and special jobs like studio manager. These roles give artists a sense of responsibility for the space and the work that they do in the art studio. Here in this image, we see two kindergarten students participating in Art Talk. This process allows students to look carefully at works of art, talk about what they observe, and back up their ideas with evidence. It also provides them an opportunity to listen to and consider the views of others. Students really look forward to this time and often tell me it's one of their favorite parts of art class. Now, let's take a look at how artists of different ages experience the art studio. In preschool, artists at this age experience art through 4 different centers that provide them with both new and familiar experiences, and lots of room for open-ended exploration and play. Centers provide artists the structure they need, but the freedom to create, imagine, and explore. The focus is on the process and the experience of stretching and exploring. Materials in centers are carefully selected and scaffolded to meet students where they are and offer new challenges as students progress. In the Art Exploration Center, students explore traditional art materials, including paint, a variety of drawing tools, and objects for making 3D works of art. In the Sensory Center, students get their hands messy with all kinds of fun tools and experiences. Sensory play is the foundation of all the skills students will use in school learning to read, write, and solve math problems. Two of the favorites from this center are cloud dough and shaving cream. The Exploration Center offers artists open-ended explorations of objects. Research suggests that engaging in open-ended play might instill in children that there can be many solutions to a problem. Seeing how my students engage with these materials is always exciting to me because their ideas and their uses for the objects often are way more creative than anything I would imagine to do with them. The Building Center is similar to the Exploration Center in that it offers open-ended objects for play. However, at this center, students use objects that are more overtly for building. Wooden blocks are one of my favorite objects because of their endless possibilities. Here you can see 2 students create a robot with blocks. And here, another student creates a more traditional building. The preschool artist describes her building to me as a museum. When I asked her what was in the museum, she said dinosaurs. She had recently been to a visit at a natural history museum and was exploring her memory through the building. Kindergarten. I love teaching kindergarten. They are so funny and they are more independent and move freely about the art studio. They use the same structure as set of centers to experience art, but they have a lot more choice. At this age, for play, students can explore open-ended blocks and objects as part of the art studio. They love creating art and objects that they can use for pretend play. You can see in this image I have a student who created a little character who is wearing a removable backpack. Students love making little pieces of art that they can then play with for part of the art class. Autonomy. Students have greater choice over the materials they use and the centers they may choose, and the time that they stay engaged in these centers. This class is facilitated much like preschool, with the exception that kindergartners can choose how long they stay at a center. Some students will stay engaged at one center the entire class, whereas other students will move freely and follow their interests and ideas. Community. Each class begins with circle time. During circle time, we look at an image from an artist, or an illustration, or we practice a new skill together. For example, we might learn a new fact about how to use a paintbrush or how to color with a crayon on its side. Sometimes students request how to learn specific things. I had one kindergarten class this year that was studying birds, and after several requests for how to draw a bird, I provided pictures and demonstrated how to find the shapes and lines in those pictures to draw birds. Kindergarten also builds community by being cleanup helpers. Students at this age take great pride in contributing to the classroom environment. They also love art talk and asking questions of their classmates. First through 3rd grade artists. Students at this age are so excited to learn. Their enthusiasm is contagious. They love learning how to use new materials and learning new techniques, but they also like practicing old tricks and feeling really accomplished at them. Play. At this age, students have access to building materials and open-ended objects. They often work with partners or friends to create their own elaborate designs, buildings, and even games that they make up their own rules to. Autonomy. Each class begins with sketchbook time, where students work independently in their sketchbooks, then a brief demonstration or art discussion, followed by open studio time, where students may choose the materials they are interested in working on. I often see students developing an interest in specific materials at this age. For instance, I have a group of first grade students who became very engaged in sewing this year and spent most of the year working on sewing, while others explored the wider variety of materials in the art room. Community. At this age, students take great responsibility and care of the art room. They participate in organizing the materials and keeping the studio centers neat and tidy. They also love to follow and enforce rules and are quick to call out students who are not following the rules. This age group loves discussing their art during art talk and feels a great sense of pride when they see their artwork on display throughout the school. 4th and 5th grade artists. Students at this age have a sense of the larger world around them and are able to explore big ideas. They really enjoy being social and naturally collaborate with each other, but sometimes they need a little extra encouragement to work through challenges and how to figure out their ideas, getting their ideas into their art. At this age, students enjoy creating their own objects and games to interact with. They also really enjoy art challenges. So in my classroom, I set out bins with open-ended supplies. Sometimes they have directions, sometimes they don't. And the students see those as little mini art challenges to get their brains thinking. One of my favorite bins, and the students' favorite bins, is a bin with cups and plates. And the students' goal is to build the tallest tower they can with the materials provided. It's really interesting to see what different groups come up with. Autonomy. The overall structure for this class is the same as 1st through 3rd grade, as in each class begins with sketchbook time, followed by a short demo, followed by open studio time, and then class is closed with a group art talk. At this age, I see students naturally collaborating with their peers and envisioning exciting and elaborate designs and ideas. Here you can see a group of boys has worked for several weeks constructing a racetrack and a whole city for their Hot Wheels cars. They were so engaged in building that they even came into art to build during their recess time. Community. At this age, students enjoy having specific roles as studio managers. That means they're in charge of an entire center, so all the drawing supplies or all the paint supplies. It gives them a really great sense of responsibility. While they enjoy talking about their artwork, they can sometimes be a little embarrassed or a little shy. So often we do art talk in smaller groups or in partners at this age. Common questions from parents. How do I talk to my child about their art? Well, my first piece of advice for parents when they ask this is just listen. My favorite thing to ask students is, tell me about your art. Asking this question is open-ended and it allows artists to just talk about any aspect they wish. They might want to talk about how the paint squished around on the paper, or how they were thinking of an experience, or drawing their favorite superhero. My second piece of advice is to assume nothing. It's easy for adults to look at children's art and assume that they were making a tree or a person or a house. And we can interpret things to be representational when they aren't, and vice versa. Lastly, make observations without judgment. So even as an art teacher, this is one of the hardest things to do. It's easy to say, wow, that's so beautiful, or give some other nondescript praise about a student's art. But I really encourage you to just observe. Look at what you see and repeat it back. For instance, instead of saying, wow, those colors are so beautiful, you could say, I see you've used many bright colors in your artwork. It's an observation rather than a judgment. You could even add on to that by asking them, tell me about the colors you used in your artwork. The reason I encourage observation over judgment, whether it's positive or negative, is to allow the child room to form their own opinions about their work and to continue making work that they enjoy, rather than making work for the satisfaction of adults. How can I encourage creativity at home? My first suggestion is to be thoughtful about your language. Even if you do not consider yourself to be creative or artistic, you can help foster this in your child. So often I hear parents say, I'm not an artist, or I can't even draw a stick person. Well, lucky for you, that's not what making art is all about. Just enjoy the process with your child. It doesn't matter if your art looks like anything at all. Provide your child with drawing tools, paper, scissors, string, beads, small objects. With a little imagination, anything can be art. Secondly, provide your child with opportunities for open-ended play. This could be with anything: a laundry basket, a stick, some blocks. These kinds of objects encourage them to use their imaginations to create something new. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. I hope you found this presentation to be useful. And if you'd like to read further about the resources that I've cited in this presentation, or know more about what goes on in my classroom, please check out my website at MsSevernsStudioTABandPlay. Thank you.